we actually have some polling that suggests that Tucker is fairly alone in terms of Iran support, especially because he still considers himself MAGA. So right now I'm going to play a clip from Harry Enton, and then we'll talk about it once it's done.
Yeah, you know, sometimes you look at the polling data and there are numbers that just jump off the screen at you, and this is one of those. Because just take a look here. MAGA GOP view of Trump. Approve 100%, 100%. If you are a member of MAGA in the GOP, you approve of Donald John Trump. 0% say that they disapprove. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to know you can't go higher than 100%. He is the 1972 Miami Dolphins. Now, there are some Republicans who disapprove of Donald John Trump, but they are not members of the Make America Great Again movement. The bottom line is this: if you are a member of MAGA, you approve of Donald Trump.
It's interesting, though, because there have been a couple prominent people who have sort of come out online, and they're very mad about this war with Iran because he promised no new wars. Is there any sign that people might be leaving MAGA relative to 2024?
Yeah, okay. So, you know, I've said it before, and, you know, the theme of this segment is Tucker Carlson be darned. And when we look at the numbers, I mean, I've heard some people say, oh, you know what, when you look at those MAGA numbers, it doesn't account for those who might have left MAGA. But take a look here. Americans who identify as MAGA, in November of 2024, it was 28% of Americans. Now it's basically the same. If anything, it's slightly higher at 30%. The bottom line is this: the MAGA base within the GOP is not shrinking. It's the same size. If anything, it is slightly larger than it was back in 2024 when, of course, Donald Trump won a second term. So that 100% that Donald Trump has approval among MAGA GOP, that is not an artifact of MAGA shrinking. It's just an indication of how strong Donald Trump's grip is on that MAGA base.
And so I guess that begs the question: what's happening with inside the GOP, and if there are any splits there, because with those kind of numbers, they're going to want to retain that, right? So they can retain their seats.
Yes, yes. And you know what we're talking about, you know, we mentioned Iran in the intro of this segment, GOP on U.S. military action in Iran. Look at this. In MAGA, it's 90% approval. It's 90% approval, just 5% disapproval. If you disapprove of the job that Donald Trump is doing, or excuse me, the U.S. military action in Iran, and you're a member of the GOP, look at this. It's your non-MAGA. You're non-MAGA. It's 36% there, 54% approve. But the majority of Republicans approve of the job that the U.S. military action is in Iran, and the majority of MAGA, which is the majority of the GOP, very much approve, 90%. Very little split in Donald Trump's base. Those who disapprove in the GOP, simply put, they hate MAGA.
Okay, so as you saw in that clip, and I'm going to split it up. I'm going to talk about the end portion of that clip first. We have 90% of MAGA-identified individuals support the Iran action. So Tucker is in a very, very small minority there. But even if you exclude the MAGA and you just take the people in the Republican Party that aren't MAGA, who don't say that they're MAGA, don't necessarily support Trump, 54% of them still support the Iran conflict. So Tucker is at the very least in the minority, along with all the other people who are actually against this conflict, especially on the conservative side. But I mean, they're welcome to have their opinions. It's just that they're not very favorable with the rest of the administration, or I'm sorry, the rest of the movement. Which there's good things about that and bad things about it, particularly because I do think that Tucker and Megyn especially, they have done good things for the conservative movement, especially the MAGA movement. I feel like they've definitely gone a bit off the rails recently within the past few months, but I would like to pull them back in and actually start working with them a bit more, just because, like I said, they have a good track record. It's just recently they've kind of been going off the rails. So if we could rein them in a little bit, then I think that we would definitely have some help in the midterms, especially because, as you see here, we have, or in that clip, you saw that we had some more polling regarding support for Trump, which on the surface level looks good, but it could be a mixed bag. So you saw that for individuals who identify as MAGA, Trump has 100% support. This isn't very surprising. I mean, obviously, if you support MAGA, you support Trump at this point. Some people are saying that they don't, but it's within margin of error, those people. So in general, people will support MAGA. And the other thing, too, is that people will say that MAGA is fracturing. It really isn't. And so, and this is another specifier, is that technically MAGA is separate from the coalition that elected Trump. And I just want to make that distinction right now because I'll talk about that a little bit later. But people identifying as MAGA has actually increased from 28 to 30%, but this is still within margin of error of the survey. So you can't really tell one way or the other if it's increased or if it's decreased, but or if it has even stayed the same. But in general, it's still very similar to what it was before. So there's not many people actually leaving the MAGA train. If anything, they're gaining support. So all this looks good, but you have to realize that you can't win elections with 30% of the population unless you have a significant number of parties or a lot of politicians that are splitting the vote. But that's not the political landscape that we live in. So you obviously need independence. So let's see what polling says about independence.
You know, I would say that this is the most troublesome sign that I have seen for the President of the United States and the Republican Party so far. What are we talking about? Well, let's take a look here. Voters on Trump and the cost of living. You go back when he was reelected back in October of 2024, he was beating Kamala Harris by 3 points on the cost of living, right? Look at his net approval rating now. Woo! Down underwater we go. His net approval at a record low, 41 points below water. You can't win when you're at 41 points below water on the cost of living. Kamala Harris couldn't win. The Democratic Party couldn't win. And I'm here to tell you that there's a better chance that I root for the New York Yankees than Donald Trump and the Republican Party winning when he's 41 points below water.
This was March 12th to March 16th. We could see even more, gas prices rise and prices go up in the coming days and weeks with the Iran war. So this number could get even worse. What about independence?
Yeah, what about independence? You think this 41 points below water is bad? Take a look at independence. It's even worse. I mean, 60 points underwater when it comes to Trump and the cost of living among independents. Again, a record low. You go back to October of 2024. He was winning on this issue over Kamala Harris by 11 points. Look at that switcheroo. That is a 71-point switcheroo in the wrong direction for Donald Trump when we're coming to the cost of living and independence. And this, my dear friends, is just a political nightmare waiting to happen for the Republican Party come the midterm elections.
I mean, why? Do people really care about the cost of living?
You know, yes, they do, Mr. Berman. They do care about the cost of living. Why was Donald Trump reelected back in 2024? It was the cost of living. It was the #1 issue, okay? #1 issue, top election issue, cost of living. 38% of Americans said it was so back in October of 2024. Look now, it's the same percentage. If anything, it's a point higher, though it's within the margin of error. 39%. Simply put, I am saying this loud and proud. You cannot win an election when you are the incumbent party and the top issue is the cost of living and you're the President of the United States and your net approval rating on it is 41 points underwater. I mean, you're with Greg Louganis at this point, and with independents, 60 points underwater. What, are you kidding me? You cannot win. If you're the president and you're the Republican Party and you're not addressing this issue, wave adios amigos, goodbye, see you later, your House majority, and may very well be your Senate majority as well.
You're saying...
Okay, so in that clip you saw that there's approximately 60% disapproval of Trump amongst independents, which is pretty concerning, especially in a midterm election year, because we need independents to win these elections. I mean, a lot of people mock me for this, but it's not like if you lose independents as a Republican, it's more likely that you're going to lose the election because Democrats have significantly higher turnout in terms of all elections as opposed to conservatives or Republicans. But especially in midterms, because a lot of Republicans tend not to vote in midterms. They show up when the presidential election comes around, but they don't vote in midterms, basically stinting the whole movement and preventing Republicans from actually getting stuff done and giving them the consistent power that's required. But this 60% disapproval is particularly worrying because 39% say the cost of living is the biggest issue for them, and Trump isn't addressing this in their minds. I don't recall if the number is actually in that clip or not, but it's not looking good. So I like I said, I think this is a mixed bag because obviously we need to focus on independence for the midterms if we want to win. But at the same time, let's look at some other polling sites for basically the Republican and Democrat Party favorability amongst all voters. So if you look here, we have Democratic, or I'm sorry, let's start with Republican favorability, just because I'm talking about Republicans. So Republicans have a net favorability of approximately negative 15%, which it's bad. Not awful, but it's bad. Compare that to the Democrat unfavorability, which is negative 20%. So they have their net disapproval is 20%. So a lot of people aren't happy with the Democrat Party either. And this is why I tend to say that this is going to come down to voter turnout by each party, because it's seeming more and more like independents don't want to vote for either party, which means that they're very likely going to either stay home at elections, or they're going to just they're going to vote for a third party, which could be good depending on the third party candidate if you support that. But I think that this is going to cause problems in the long run as well, particularly because this leads to more polarization. Because if you only have the most radical people in each party's voting, then you're obviously going to get much more radicalized policies. Therefore, you're no longer appealing to the moderate candidate. You're just implementing the craziest policies you can. I believe I've talked about this before, but what this does is it tends to result in solid red states and solid blue states, and basically that will eventually lead to a civil war, because you have two diametrically opposed viewpoints that no longer are seeking middle ground. So whoever wins federal power will use that to subject the other side, which isn't good. But that's how things are. So I'm hoping that we can get more independents to actually show up to vote. And like I said, based on the polling right now, it does look like even though independents are disapproving of Trump, they're more disapproving of the Democrat Party. So we might be able to see some of them. But Trump administration needs, Trump and Republicans all around need to focus on winning independent votes, and especially by focusing on the economy.